What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people about idle champions and Dungeons and Dragons. With me this week is the incredible Mark Hulmes.
Hello, everybody.
I'm doing the cheers
sorry.
now.
Oh yeah, please do the cheers. Yeah, get pumped up. I'm so sorry that my audio is really echoey and bad. I'm currently traveling. I'm currently in LA and my Airbnb, so I don't have all my nice setups. I'm sorry if it's like.
Yeah, hey guys, it's here from Hello, so it's nice to see you.
I said no pickles. No pickles.
Yeah, he said no pickles. Yeah, so with fries? Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
This is going to be one of those shows, chat.
We were just talking about this before it started, and we're both PhDers, and we're both masters of tangents.
Yeah.
This is going to be chaos. So, yeah, nice.
Mark, if somehow someone in the chat doesn't know who you are you for those fine folks?
There's a very good chance that people will know. But no, my name is Mark Hulmes. I'm also known as Sherlock Hulmes online. I actually don't like Sherlock Holmes very much. People just thought it was a cool username. I'm stuck with it now. You might find me, I'm all over the internet. I do a bunch of stuff, whether it's on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. I do a bunch of stuff there. But most people know me as the Dungeon Master for High Rollers D&D, High Rollers, which is a UK-based D&D live stream, kind of podcast live stream, actual play. We've been going for a very long time, kind of nearly the start of 5th edition. We've been going for a pretty long time as well. We kind of started around the same time as Critical Role was like just getting going. And we've been around for a long time. Most people know me from that. The other half of the people that do know me as being a friend of the Critical Role crew, and I've been a guest character in Campaign 2 as Kaliana. I did some crazy one-shots like the My Little Pony one-shot and a bunch of other stuff with those guys as well. Right. Appeared in like their D&D Beyond presidential ads as the interfering foreign minister, little things like that. And then a bunch of other stuff like D&D live events I've cropped up in. I've popped up here and there for Idle Champion stuff. And you can also now find me in Fury of the Black Rose here on CNE Games, twitch.tv/CNE Games. So yeah, that's how most people would probably know me.
That was a good list of things too. That was a fantastic list of things.
It's been a good decade. Like from where I was working previously to where I am now, it's been a good few years.
Big same. So Mark, I'm gonna start things off with the way that I always like to kick things off with folks who are on the show with me for the first time, which is how'd you get into D&D?
Yeah. So if people who are watching this know me, you've probably heard this story a few times. But for me, it was, if I remember, me and my friends, I had a big group of friends in high school. We'd known each other since we were little kids, and we'd grown up together, and we were all big fantasy nerds, big video gamers. And we were all into things like Warhammer. We went to LARP, and we played like online role-playing games and things like that. And then in our sort of teen years, we went into our local kind of comic store, and they had like TTRPGs, but we hadn't really ever played any of them or knew it. We kind of knew what D&D was. You'd heard it. We knew the pop culture significance of it. But they had the 3rd edition starter box in the comic store, and me and my pals were like, we should get that. We all pooled our pocket money. So we all got our £5 out, and we all kind of clubbed together, and we bought the starter box.
That's a good box.
It was a good box, right? And we took it home, and we didn't know what we were doing. And nobody else wanted to be the DM. So I was like, well, I guess I'll do it. Like, I like doing theater and drama. I'll do all the silly voices and stuff. And we'd never watched anybody else play it. Like, we literally looked at the rules. I kind of flicked through them, went, I vaguely get this. Right, Dave, you're going to be the dwarf. Jack, you're going to be the human. Blah, 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 blah. Hey, let's play.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then that literally kicked off everything. And then me and my friends played D&D almost every day of high school into, I guess, college for the US or sixth form here in the UK. And then when I moved out and I started my first job, D&D was the way that I kind of made friends and I got to know people because like I was working at a games company at the time. There was loads of nerdy people around, people that liked all the same things we did. And I said, hey, have you ever played D&D? No, I've always wanted to try. Oh, I'll DM for you. Like, let's come around mine and we'll play D&D. We'll get a bunch of people together. And that's how I made my friends. And so that, it was like a real, like I've been playing for a long time and, I kind of missed out. I guess my earliest interaction with D&D was games like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, because I'd played, but I'd never played tabletop D&D. So I kind of knew a bunch of stuff and I was like, I know what a half-elf is. I know what an orc and a goblin and stuff like that is. But, I played Warhammer as well with the same. So fantasy kind of tropes were there, but I'd never actually sat down and rolled a D20 and made a character sheet and all that kind of stuff. And back in the day when it was me and my school friends, I started off as the DM, but then my other friend took over. And so when I was younger, I got to be a player more of the time. And then as soon as I started DMing for my work friends, the ever DM career began. And I've never been allowed to leave. So,
Oh, the Forever DM. So much fun. Many characters turned into NPCs.
Yeah, very much so. Luckily, like I do get to do things like Idle Champs where I actually now get to bring some characters in. But yeah, there's a lot of unplayed characters that get made, deleted, and then just reused wherever I can. So
yeah. That's fantastic though. I gotta be honest, I'm jealous of like anyone that's like, I played D&D every day of high school. I'm like, oh, that sounds so good.
It was genuinely, I think, like, because we had such a core group of friends, and people tried to bully us and stuff, but we were all very confident in who we were. There was one incident where somebody tried to bully me and my friends for playing D&D. This is maybe not a good. Don't take my example, anybody who's younger in school. But my dad, I come from a pretty rough part of the UK called Essex.
Mm-hmm.
I know that everyone's thinking the only way is Essex. That's not really what Essex is and stuff like that. But it was a pretty rough school. And my dad always told me, he was like, if anybody starts really bullying you and your friends, you have to fight back, because if you fight back, they won't pick on you again. And I was like, okay, I remember my dad's word. And this bully kind of started a fight with me, and I just turned around. I was just like, whoosh, and we had this big bust up. And then when the teachers came and were like, okay, what happened? Who started it? I was like, I'm a good boy. I didn't start it. It's terrible. It was terrible. But he was kind of mean. And I was a very good kid, and they believed me. So
okay, I gotta ask, because this sounds like the nerdy thing you would do. Did afterwards you were like, pass that deception check?
No, but in my head I had like anime soundtracks going. It was just like it was very Dragon Ball Z at the time. So there was a lot of that going on up here. But yeah,
I love that.
It was good times. But yeah, so like we were really confident, and like we just loved it so much. And a lot of us were like theater kids as well. We were all doing drama and performing arts. And we just loved it so much. And the best thing is our parents loved it, because we weren't out in trouble. We weren't getting drunk. We weren't, doing anything that we shouldn't have been doing. They knew where we were. They knew we were safe. They were like, yep, you want to come over and play D&D for 5 hours every day? Go for it. Go nuts. Here's all the snacks. Here's all the sodas. Do what you want. Like, it was very good. We were very lucky.
That is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. So how did High Rollers come about from there?
Yeah, so High Rollers is another kind of interesting one, where so I had worked in a bunch of social media manager jobs and community manager jobs, and my partner Nina, she's a illustrator, a freelance illustrator, which she was at the time, and she got a job offer to go and work for a YouTube network as their sort of in-house artist, and it was really great for her. She loved it, still does, and part of it, I was really unhappy in my games industry job and things like that. And I saw them doing their social media, and I was just like, oh, this other company, this YouTube network. I was like, guys, you should be doing this. You should be doing that. And the owner of the company was like, well, it sounds like I should just hire you to do this job, and then you and Nina can move to Bristol. And I was like, yeah, okay, done. So we moved there. And then as part of that, around Christmas time, they do this big charity event called the Jingle Jam. It's like a month long of streams. And I was still working as a community manager, social media manager, but I said, hey, why don't I run some D&D for the charity thing? We could do like a charity D&D game. They were like, oh yeah, that sounds great. So we did it, and it made, raised a ton of money. People seem to really enjoy it. And then the question of like, well, hey, this Critical Role show is kind of kicking off like online as well. Do you guys want to do something similar to that, on our channel?
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah, man, that sounds awesome. And like, there was a couple of friends who were like into D&D, and I was running D&D from sort of like offline. And they were like, yeah, well, let's put this together. So we kind of got our friends. We picked a few people that we thought would be good. Some people had never played before. Some people had played a little bit, but not much. And then I was the GM. And it was really that kind of opportunity where, all of my skills as an actor and like being a GM for so long at home kind of met this really good opportunity with this network wanting to do more Twitch streaming and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it really just took off there. And we honestly thought High Rollers would be like, we thought we'd do it for like 2 months. And then everyone would be, yeah, kind of done. Like, you guys aren't that funny, or you're not that interesting, or whatever. We kind of thought like nobody would care for it.
Yeah.
And then it got to that 2 months, Mike, and we were like one of the we had like loads of viewers, loads of support coming in terms of donations and subscriptions and things like that. And that got to the point where they turned around and said, well, do you want to do this full time? Like, you could quit the community manager stuff and just be a content creator and be an influencer and do this as your full-time job. And I was like, hell yeah, that's the plan. And so we founded the company. And then High Rollers has been the same, been doing that ever since, really. So yeah, it's amazing. Like it's honestly just one of those like things kind of meeting and then just the lightning in the bottle, right? So
man, the lightning in the bottle, the perfect timing, the everything. That is so cool.
I do think that was a big part of it as well, because we, like I mentioned, like we started High Rollers really not that long. I think like Critical Role had maybe done like 30, 34 episodes or something like that. Like it was in its still early, it was with Geek and Sundry and everything else. And everybody was just so hungry for D&D content.
Yeah.
And, there was other stuff going on like Ack Inc. and all of these other shows that people knew about. But it was really, and because we had that YouTube network, a lot of the creators in that, all of their audiences were like, oh, I've never seen anything. I don't know what this D&D thing is. I've always heard about it. I'll check it out. And I think we just had the right mixture of, we didn't take it too seriously, but we took it seriously when it mattered. It was sincere, it was genuine, it was funny, it was emotional, and it just had that kind of like perfect mix of what D&D and what RPGs can and are. Mm-hmm. And people were like, whoa, this is like, I've never seen anything like this. This is amazing. And we just hit that kind of sweet spot where we just hit that at the right time, So it was really good. It was really, really good.
So was Heroes of Erois the first thing you all did?
No. In fact, so Erois is our second campaign for High Rollers.
Okay.
So our first campaign we began was called Lightfall, which I'm very annoyed that Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise have stolen the name of. By the way, I'm coming for you, Tom. But no, we had the very first campaign we did. It lasted about a year and a half, 2 years. It was called Lightfall, and it was our first campaign. And so we had like all these other different characters that we played in that. And then Erois, when we finished that campaign, we started Erois, and that's when we brought Rhiannon on, who I know you've met and is in Fury of the Black Rose with us as well. We brought Rhiannon in to kind of, bulk up the team because we had 4 players in the first campaign. We wanted to have 5 for the next campaign. And so Erois was really the kind of evolution. And I took a lot of the stuff I learned from doing that first campaign and was like, okay, well, this works. I'm going to do this now for Erois. Constantly evolving, constantly improving, and doing all of that good stuff. Excuse me, this Powerade is just like I'm not used to it.
Yeah, for just so folks know, we're recording this. I mean, if you haven't known by now, it's pre-recorded. We're doing this in the morning, so we're still getting into the day right now.
Yeah. And I was like traveling for like nearly 24 hours yesterday, so I'm like, whoa.
Fun times. So have you were talking about how like you got to switch over to being a player and then doing the DM stuff kind of for everybody. Are there times that you do get to be a player on High Rollers occasionally? Is there like one shots or no? It's just you, huh?
Very often. We have had like I think maybe 2 or 3 where it's either like a Christmas special episode or a charity special. My friend Kim, who's in High Rollers, has GM'd a couple of special things for like Chinese Lunar New Year. And I've got to be a player in those. But you're talking like maybe 3 times in like 7 years. So generally I tend to get a player if it's somebody else running the game and doing something else. So I do get to be a player more now than I ever have, but it's still, primarily GMing.
I kind of like that though when it's the every so often, because I feel like those are like just a little extra special. Like you're talking about, you brought up Ack Inc. Like I used to listen to those all the time, and that one time that Chris was a player, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I'm so happy right now.
and Chris is an amazing player anyway. I love seeing Chris as a player. He's a great player. But yeah, I think it's like, and I know I'm the same. As soon as like somebody else is in that GM chair and I'm sat there, especially when it's the High Rollers crew, I'm like, I am going to be the worst. I'm just insufferable because you all make me suffer every week, and now I'm just going to come to town. And it's party time,
I think the worst thing I've ever done as a player when like I was the main DM for the longest time was just show up to a game trashed after recording a podcast. But me and 2 of the other players had a podcast, and we recorded an episode talking about Krampus. It was a holiday episode, and so we got trashed on eggnog, and then we showed up to D&D talking about Devil Santa.
Yes, that's perfect. That's exactly the kind of energy you need to bring.
It's like this, I'm giving you the true player experience right now.
Yeah, this is it. Right, take this. I'm dialing it up to 11, but you guys are pretty much a 9 or a 10.
Yeah, that is the true players. They're so much fun.
I love them to pieces. We wouldn't be here without them. And they drive me crazy sometimes. I love them though.
Yeah. This past week, I learned I learned again the lesson of don't put something in the player's reach that could kill them and think they're not going to do it.
Yeah, it's the classic,
Yep,
yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Like if they're like, and it's for me, I love that as you GM more and more, you learn the different player types.
Yes.
And so in a group, I will be like, right, you're a lever puller, you hate any risk, and you hate these two because you're just like, stop nearly getting my character killed. And these two are like, woo, let's go. What does this do? What does that do? I want to fight that guy. Or like my favorite is in High Rollers, we have Chris Trott, one of the players.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned maybe like after about a year of us playing together, I realized I was like, man, he will get really shirty with any sort of authority NPC. Like if they meet a king or a queen or a captain of the guard who's like, you should do this, you should do it. Anybody of any position of authority, even if he's playing like a really good lawful character, he's like, there's just something in him out of character that he's like, I'm gonna fight this guy. Like just like, oh, like, and he'll just like talk back and he'll be like really like sarcastic with them and stuff. So now I'm just like, oh well, I'm just gonna put this really smarmy, lawful like authority figure, and he's gonna cause trouble, and then everyone will be mad, and it will be great.
That's perfect. That's the level of DM where it's just like, I know how I can get things to happen.
Yeah. And that's you own, and I think that's why I have a lot of admiration for GMs who do things like game nights at like clubs and conventions and stuff. Because to me, I play with the same people every week, and so I know them. I know what they like. I know what they don't like, and I know where those levels of trusts are as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if I GM for a brand new group who I don't know, God, it's the most terrifying thing in the world to me because I'm just like, I don't know you guys yet. I need to figure this out. Like where does everything sit? And obviously, like, session 0 and safety are really helpful for that. But it's that like I feel so comfortable and safe with my guys now, and I'm like, new people, terrifying.
I have massive respect for people that go out and do that. I did it for a year and a half at a bookstore, but with kids. And like just that alone, I'm just like, I respect for anyone that just goes out and GMs for people they don't know, because these people are chaos incarnate.
Yep. And especially kids, because kids are just like, the few times that I've played with younger players, they're so creative and they'll just do stuff where I'm like, I did not think about that. Like, what do I do now? I need to look strong in front of them. Yeah, this happens.
Yeah, the kids were like some of the most chaotic players I've ever had, but at the same time, also some of the most wholesome moments of my entire life. Yeah. Like when a kid who was obsessed with dragons got true polymorphed into a bronze dragon by another player. I don't think I'm ever going to see someone with more joy in their life.
It's true. That pure innocence of just like, I'm a dragon, yeah. So good.
So let's shift gears for a moment. Tell me about Miria. Who is Miria?
Yeah, Miria. So Miria is the character that I'm playing in Fury of the Black Rose. And she was built, so she is technically, in game mechanic terms, if you want to kind of strip away the lore, she's a Shadar Kai elf wizard. The reason that she's a Shadar Kai, I don't see her as being a traditional Shadar Kai in terms of who her character is. They're just the best stats that represented who she is.
Okay.
Because she's from the world of Kreen, or Kryn. I never know which way round it is. It's
I never know either.
I don't know. And I read the Dragonlance books. She's actually an elf from the place called Sylvanost, I think, or Sylvanesti elf. But she is basically favored by Nutari, the Dark Moon, like this god of dark magic and evil. And so for me, the Shadar Kai thing, I was like, well, these other elves like High Elf and Wood Elf didn't really fit the character. But the idea of an elf who has been blessed by Nutari and has this kind of otherworldly presence, the Shadar Kai was perfect. So I spoke to like B Dave and those guys and was just like, hey, technically going to use these game stats. But lore-wise, she's just a Sylvanesti elf who's blessed by Nutari. And she's a complex character. It's actually, I was surprised that, like, because normally when I do these kind of things, you don't really have a lot of time to come up with a character. It's like, hey, you're going to play a character for 2 or 3 episodes. Oh, great. I'll be a silly archer with a German accent. I'm going to be a bunny man, whatever. With Miria, I was surprised at how much of her lore, like as I started writing it, I really started getting into the character and really detailing it. And she's actually quite complex, and there's a lot of stuff in her backstory, and it's quite a lengthy, but I felt that it's the first time I've never done this. I was like pages of it, and I was like, oh my God, this character, more about this character than I think I have in 20 years.
It was just all pent up.
I think it was. It really was. It really was. And it's just that kind of thing of, as I started writing it, more just flowed very naturally. And I was like, oh, it would make sense if this had happened. And then she did this, and then this kind of translated. And the nice thing with playing an elven character as well is there's a lot of history there. Like, you know, I think she's around 360 years old. So, like, I was like, yeah, what has she done in that time? And like, all this stuff that's happened. But she is a mage of the Towers of High Sorcery, which again is a very Dragonlance thing. They have these towers of sorcery that you go to, pass a test, and then you can learn more advanced magic and skill. And she is an adept of the Black Robes, which means she is an evil wizard. Although I don't think that counts anymore. I think it's more like she is interested in power, and she puts herself before other people.
There you go.
She's evil. She's lawful. Yeah, and it's just been really fun. And she's currently with in the group. She's kind of been thrown into the party because she was working for the villain Lord Soth. Then he tried to he betrayed her. He tried to turn her into an undead thrall, bind her to his will. She's not about that, and escaped, and is now like, right, going to get revenge, going to try and escape. I want to go off and do my own thing now. So, and yeah, she's really fun. And then visually, her character design is actually based on my LARP character that I currently play, who I really, really adore. And I took a lot of elements from the LARP character and put them into Miria, because I was like, oh, if this is going to be a character in a video game, I want this to be a character that I'm really invested in and really care about. So
I caught that with the first time I saw the art for Miria. I'm like, I recognize that.
yeah. If you've seen like my Twitter and my Instagram, you know, you've seen like the pictures of my LARP character Morgan, and there's it's black and red and white hair and very sort of like and she's very like effeminate. She's very sort of like stylist and fashionable, and very much calls everyone darling and things like that. It's that kind of politeness, but there's always that kind of dark twist to it that like, is she being nice, or is she just trying to make me like her so she can use me in some way later on? And the answer is, yeah, maybe you won't probably know. So
my favorite type of character too.
She's a ton of fun to play. She's a real fun one to play, especially with the current group as well. Because I know that there's I know Ellen and Rhiannon in the party. I know them, but I know Rhiannon very well, obviously. And Ellen I've met a few times, and they're just like really wholesome, lovely. They're like, oh, she seems lovely. Like, yeah, we'll work together. And then I can see Gabe, who I also play with. I see what you're doing, and I'm like,
and Gabe does not hide those expressions. It's just very much
absolutely, yeah. He'll like, yeah, and when we were talking about it, because his character, we talked a little bit about, and like, you know, we're going to basically be on these opposite sides, and it was like I think it was him that suggested, he was like, hey, what if we've fought before, like we've tried to kill each other? And I was like, hell yeah. I was like, hell yeah. Let's do that. Like, go for the full like enemies, rivals, maybe turn to friends, maybe one, but we'll see. That's up to so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, she's so much fun.
So what drew you to having this, you know, we won't say evil, it's more selfish wizard. Like what was it that pulled you to that character?
Well, 100%, you know, playing a character from the world of Dragonlance. I read the Dragonlance books as a kid. Raistlin Magier, one of the most iconic fantasy characters of all time. Watching that journey, that fall from this kind of neutral, I'm not really sure about this guy wizard, to like, no, I'm in it for power. I'm in it to be number one. I was like, if I'm playing in Dragonlance, man, like I've got to be an adder. If I'm going to be a wizard, if I'm going to be a spellcaster in Dragonlance, I got to be a black robe wizard of the Towers of High Sorcery. Like, I just had to.
It's like, pretty cool, yeah.
Teenage Mark that read those books would never have forgiven me if I hadn't done that. But I also love playing contrasting elements, like having Miria's kind of like politeness and her love of fashion and comfort, coupled with this kind of like, no, but at the end of the day, I'm out for number one. And like, you know, I will do what I will do to gain power, whatever that is. And survive as well. Like, she's a survivor. Like, the stuff that she's been through in her life has taught her that ultimately she has to put herself first. Otherwise, terrible things are going to happen to her. So,
and she has if I remember correctly, she has a skeleton arm, right? What has that been revealed in the show? What's going on with that?
So I've mentioned it briefly, but it's probably not going to come up in more detail. But basically, the idea of it is that when Soth tried to turn her into this undead minion and bind her to his will, she basically sacrificed the flesh off of her arm to escape.
Jeez.
So it was in doing that, whether she like cut her arm off or whether she kind of like stripped the flesh and used it as, I haven't necessarily the details, but the idea of it is that like he basically didn't expect her to make that sacrifice. She cuts or destroys the arm and then uses that to flee. And then because she's a powerful necromancer, she basically is constantly like lightly animating the bones, and that's why she can move it and use it and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's like the idea of like that minor kind of like necromancy of just it's her own hand, but she keeps it functional and moving through necromancy.
And I love that because, I mean, like, one of the biggest complaints that I've heard, and this might be because, like, a lot of my friends are goths, but one of the biggest complaints I've heard about 5th edition is, like, the like, lack of, like, true dedicated necromancy, or, like, getting that feel kind of constantly there. And so to your character literally have a constant reminder, I'm a necromancer, that is awesome. I love that.
Yeah, and it's been fun because, like, in the game, I haven't gotten to do it yet, but I've got a couple of, like, big spells that are built into the character's in-game abilities, which I'm really excited to bust out because I'm like, yeah, she's a necromancer, and like I'm gonna bust it out. But I did get to do a cool thing, which is a spell which I very rarely see used, which was Soul Cage. And in the recent episode that we did, I got to use that on a pretty annoying enemy, and I was like, "You're mine. Your soul is mine." Very Mortal Kombat, Shang Tsung, bring it in.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned though that that there's history with Solok, and that was Gabe's idea. What is that history?
So I think it's not that complicated. It's basically, Solak is a knight of Solmania. Miria was working for Soth, and she has no loyalty to Soth. She was working for Soth because he was like, I'll give you magical secrets, I'll give you power as long as you keep helping me make this undead army and being one of my minions, basically my governors to go around and rule this land. And so they clashed. Like, there's probably been times that Solak has tried to like fight against Soth or try and free the people of the town, and Miria's fought him off. And the funny thing is the way it was great is because we'd only briefly spoken about it as a vague. We'd only really spoken about it as a vague concept. And then in the first session, the way that we played it off, Gabe was like, "Hey, roll a dice for me." I was like, "Yeah, sure, okay." Rolled a 20, and I got like an 18. He was like, "Okay, you won the last fight we had," and then I managed to get away. I was like, "Oh, great, that's perfect."
Oh,
and I built into this as well. Is like Miria has no problem with Solak. She doesn't dislike him as a person.
Yeah.
She actually quite admires the fact that he's very sort of dedicated to his cause and everything else. Because like she's lawful, right? She's like, yeah, you appreciate society, you understand laws and oaths and things like that. Unlike Soth, who basically went back on his word against her. But Solak is just like, no, you're an enemy. Like, what? You're just like a mercenary, basically. I don't trust you. And she's like, oh, okay. She doesn't take it personally. She's like, well, that's very silly of you, my dear. And like, because again, like being an elf, he's like a human, or like as far as she knows. So she's just like, no, they're just young. They don't understand yet. And she is quite patronizing like that. Like, like I think that she does kind of see a lot of other people and things like that that way.
Yeah, I guess I just never realized this about myself. I'm like, I just really enjoy that type of character. I don't know why. I just really do. They're so much fun.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things because in Erois, in the campaign that we play, one of the things that the fans have kind of sort of attributed to me and like, say that I do very well is playing morally gray villains. Like villains where it's you hate them, you learn more about them. Oh, I kind of understand why they're that way. We still have to fight them. We still have to defeat them. But I kind of wish that we could find common ground. And I love that because it's a great drama.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to have just a villain who's like, yeah, you just hate this guy and there's no moral question about it. Like, this is a horrible dirt pile of a human being. They're just an enemy. But playing a character that is that morally gray and is a little bit sort of like, I kind of get why you are the way you are, and maybe I love. I figured it out. I love having characters and villains that players are like, I can fix them. And yeah, that's what it is. Like, I love it. Like having characters who are like, no, we can fix them. We can make them better. Like.
That is my next goal. My next goal in my next D&D campaign is to have a villain that my players want to fix. That is perfection.
I'm telling you, dude, it was great. It was a great story. It wasn't me, and I can't. I think the GM's name is Alsuin. I think it was a guy who was running a game at D&D in a castle that I was at, and my friend Missy was in their game, and so she would come and tell me stories about what was happening in their game. And his villain was this like emo goth bard who was like, "I'm gonna destroy the world," but he was like a real kind of like emo, like,
oh my god,
going on. And her character was like this kind of young woman. Who was like completely and she was like, I'm infatuated with this guy, and she played up this whole like, no, I can fix him. I'm gonna make him good again, and like and ever since I heard that, I was like, oh my god, the best. Like, I want that one day. Like, I need to have that, that happen at some point. But it's such a fun little concept for sure.
I feel like that's going to be cathartic for me too, because like right now the campaign I've got, the villain, this, I can say this now on video because my players know it was revealed that their villain is a previous player's character, and I let that player, I'm like, okay, what are their goals, what is their, and she was very much just like, she's just evil, like this is completely selfish reasons, there's no going back. And I'm like, okay, so I'm just gonna mess everything up, but I really want to make it,
and that's fun to do. But that's fun to do as well.
It is. But like the whole like, oh no, but like what if we could, like, what if there are Vegeta,
yeah, and it's so much fun. Like, I love a reformed villain. It's one of my favorite tropes in media, whether it's like cartoons or anime or fiction or movies. I love reformed villains that come back, and you're like, yeah, they come back, and now they're on the side of good, and they're going to help us fight the real villain. I love that stuff. And that's really good. And then having the kind of like, oh, but maybe we can convince them to be good, maybe we can't, like that kind of like question. But then also playing a villain, and I call it like the chaotic evil, like the Joker character, right?
Yes.
Somebody who is just there to like make everything horrible and miserable, and there's no going back. And you need villains like that, because the players need to have a villain. Like, it's fun having the morally grey villain, but it can be exhausting if you do it too much, because the player's like, oh, but do we, I don't know what we should do, and I feel like we should help this guy. But then sometimes players just want to beat up villains. And like, they just want to fireball them and not feel bad about it, and just be like,
you don't get a monologue, you get 6 fireballs.
and players need that sometimes, right? They need to have those kind of enemies. But when you occasionally, then you do that, and then the next one you're like, but they've got a sad story. And the player's like, oh, I feel bad for them now. They're so sad. Murder. Yeah.
In true player fashion.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let chat know for this. We're recording this before the 4th episode, and so we don't know what happens there yet. But there's gonna be a little bit of spoilers here for episodes 1 through 3. How has it been going so far? I heard some stuff happened in the last episode.
It's been great. Yeah, it's been a really fun experience. Hands down, B-Dave's doing a great job. I love playing Miria. I love the party. It's been great the way that B-Dave's been sort of letting me and Johnny kind of take over the reins occasionally, where it connects to, like, Johnny's been doing some stuff with Merylwyn and the Oxventure universe, and then B-Dave's throwing it to me to do some stuff with Sentry and the Erois universe, because there is a big multiverse kind of thing going on, and B-Dave's so respectful of, like, this is your world. I don't want to mess up any of your storyline.
I love that.
Which is so good. It's so respectful.
I got to watch a bit of the first episode when you came in as, is it the Prime? Is that what it is?
Yes, as Root Prime, who is very much Optimus Prime.
Yeah, and when I didn't know that reference, I was just like, that sounds a lot like Optimus Prime. So when Rhiannon was like, it's Transformers, I was like, there it is.
It's that whole arc with Sentry. We basically were like, should we just do Transformers? And she was like, yeah. So yeah, he's like absolutely just like channeling as much Peter Cullen as I can. He just throws it, and like we had like, so I came up with like a setup, because obviously we had to get Sentry from Erois to Kreen, but also Erois is not connected to these other worlds. It's not Forgotten Realms. It's not, it's very solitary. So we came up with a good reason, and B-Dave asked me like, how would this work? And so I sent him some stuff, and he was like, okay, well, it's going to be easier if I basically set this up, throw it to you get the ball rolling, and then I'll take it from there. But then B-Dave got to do some really fun stuff where he knows that Hadar is the big enemy in Erois, right? It's kind of like Hadar is the big final boss enemy in Erois. But he's obviously played Hadar very differently to how I play Hadar. So he did this great thing where, as Sentry's kind of being pulled into the Kreen universe, into the Spelljammer, he's like playing Hadar, but he's like, wait a minute, I know you, but I don't know you.
Yeah.
There's another Hadar out there, isn't there? That's how I know who you are, but you don't know me. And like, it was playing into it, and then he was like, that's interesting. Maybe I'll go find this other Hadar. And watching Rhiannon's face just be like, oh no, was
there's two of them.
delicious. I was just living at that moment. But it's been great. I mean, it's been very funny playing Miria. And like, obviously me and Gabe, our characters have so much more knowledge than the others do. And so we've often been sort of like, hey, we should do this, and this is who this guy is, and this is what we're doing. And so we've seemed very competent. And then as soon as we had to start doing survival checks and like traveling, Miria's like competence aura completely evaporates. I have not rolled higher than a 9.
No.
I think I've done like one good like travel saving throw check. And so I like to imagine it that she's just gotten so used to the comforts of her mage tower and living this life of luxury, she's forgotten how to elf. So she's just useless. But it's also been great in that, like, got to play. The last episode, though, I'm kicking myself because I basically started a fight with 3 dragons because one of them called Miria a pet, and I was just like, that's not flying. We're not having that. Especially when that dragon is younger than Miria. So I was just like, so I kicked off a fight. And what I should have done, and people don't know this yet, this is going to be a bit of a spoiler. B-Dave gave us a bunch of different magic items for our characters. And Miria has a cube of force. Because I was looking at it, I was like, I rarely see it used, and it's really good. It's a really cool item. It's very powerful. And the first turn of this dragon fight, I was like, I won't activate the cube of force yet. I'll cast Mirror Image first, then I'll activate it. Fool of a fool! Why did I do that? Because then we get hit by 3 breath weapons, and Mirror is now unconscious. And now I'm just like, no! What am I going to do? I don't know. So we'll have to find out. But yeah, it's been a tough one.
That's yeah, that just sounds like a good old game of D&D right there.
and it's very much a case of me being so used to DMing and having my villains be quite strong and powerful, and then me kind of forgetting that I'm playing a squishy wizard with like 90 hit points, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna call these dragons out. F these guys. It's just like,
I'll see you in the streets.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, just foolish.
I get that though. It's like, one of the reasons I say that I always DM so much is because I roll terribly. Like it is documented on countless streams and podcasts. And I'm like,
when you're a GM, it's kind of okay to roll badly.
It's great. Everybody loves me because I'm rolling ones everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're a player and you roll all those ones, man.
There's literally been times where I'm as a player, I'm just like, I got this, and then I roll. I'm like, oh right, I'm me. Oh.
And the funny thing is for me, like when I GM, and the high rollers players and the high rollers who know this, I roll hot.
Oh really?
Like when I GM, I am like, we played once, we did Curse of Strahd, we did like a mini series where we were playing online during the pandemic. And I don't know what it is, but digital dice rollers and me, it was like, I think there was one combat I rolled 4 natural 20s in a row. And this is like, they can see them coming up. This isn't like me flubbing it.
Yeah.
Like, this is just 20, 20, 20, 20. And they were just like, we literally can't do this. Like, if you roll like that, we can't win.
Good
like,
Lord.
I don't know what to tell you guys. But like, honestly, when I GM, it's just, I roll so hot. And then when I'm a player, it's just swings. It's either really hot or really bad. Like, there is no middle
in between.
ground for me.
Yeah.
It's just one or the other.
My rolls are so bad that one of the first times I did a podcast playing, the first attack I did, I rolled a natural 20, and me and the other person flipped out, and we lost the audio, and I'm like, nice. You got, and we're like, okay, we're gonna retake that, and I'm like, but I'm keeping that 20.
Because I'm not going to get that again.
Yeah.
You have to give that to me.
But I rolled it again, and the thing is we didn't tell the audience that was the second time recording, so we just had to act normal levels of, oh my god, I rolled a critical. Now I can't believe I did that again.
Yeah. It's just, it's one of those crazy things. Like and I've said this like before. I know like this is a common superstition. The dice know. They know when a narrative moment or when a cool moment is happening, and they will know. And they will either be like, yeah, I will allow this, or they are like, no, not. That's it.
Oh, the dice. They taketh and they giveth.
very sentient.
So, one of the things I want to ask: have you had B-Dave as a DM before?
I've had B Dave as a DM. We did some charity stuff. We've done like charity one shots, but those are so chaotic because it's all like donations are like, right, draw from the deck of many things. Oh, Tiamat's shown up. Like, cool. So they are like 3 hours of like craziness. So this is the first time I've gotten to have B Dave and I'm more kind of like, right, there can be progression and there can be like development and growth and stuff like that.
Yeah. B-Dave's one-shots are, I feel like they're kind of infamous just because of that deck of many things.
Oh, yeah. Like, and like the way that he managed, like, you know, to have, I think the last one we did, we had like 4 like Behemoth legendary villains. It was like Vecna, Zariel, Demogorgon, and Tiamat or something like that. And I was just like, these creatures are enough to run one of them. So try and run for it. I think he said like, "Hey, Mark, can you take over Zariel for me?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." I'm a player, and I'm like, "I guess."
He's got so many bad guys. He's like, "Here, can you hold one?"
It's like I can't hold all these legendary actions. Like, it's just me.
All right, you've taken your turn. 6 things are gonna happen now.
Honestly, that's what it was. And then also because we're playing like 20th level characters, 15th level characters, it's like. I think it was Critical Bard, CB, was playing a Cyanite, and he was like, well, I'm going to attack 4 times. I do like a bajillion damage. I'm going to action search. I do it again. And then his turn was like 20 minutes. It's just madness.
I don't.
D&D, but man, like a combat in high-level D&D is like, there's 3 hours. There's 6 hours.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we're doing in Erois at the moment. We're in like level 19. We're nearly at the end of the campaign for High Rollers Erois. They're literally fighting gods, aliens, space tyrants, and every fight I'm basically designing as like an MMO raid battle. So that means that they're like 3 hours long because it's like, you know, there's a lot of stuff happening. Everybody can do so much in their turn. You've got to keep the mechanics interesting so that the players aren't like, oh, I've got to wait 30 minutes to do a thing and stuff like that. So yeah, but it's you know, so doing that, I have so much admiration for B-Dave because it ain't easy.
Yeah. Hey, we're back. We were talking about high-level stuff, and then the internet was the internet.
Yeah. I knew this was going to be a problem as soon as I was like, I can do it on my laptop. It'll be fine.
Little do we know the highest-level monster was the internet.
Yeah, it's always tech issues. Tech issues is a impossible infinity CR monster. So.
Yes. But yeah, we were talking about high-level play and how that is, that does take longer and whatnot. Is Erois going to go to level 20?
Yeah. So they're level 19 now, and the goal is that they'll be level 20, and then we'll finish the campaign off. Because all the players in High Rollers had never had a level 20 character before. Even in our previous campaign, we stopped around like 15, 16. And so I was like, look, for this one, it's been such a big, it's very epic, it's very over the top. We've got to take it to 20, but
heck yeah,
it's a whole thing.
Yeah, level 20 is when you start getting into those whole episode combats.
Oh, we're there. Like, honestly, for me, as soon as you get to like 15, 16, 17, that's like 2-3 hours a fight, So for us, it's a big one.
My players just hit 17, and we only do 2-hour sessions, and I'm like, this is gonna be interesting to see how a dungeon crawl goes with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So the last thing I want to ask you here about Fury of the Black Rose is, do you have any hopes for where Miria is going to end up at the end of it?
Yeah, well, her goal at the moment is, having learned that the players came in on this Spelljammer, and part of Miria's backstory is that she actually knows that there are other worlds out there. One of the few people on Kreen who actually know there are other worlds out there because of something to do with the Sylvanesti elves have this ritual where they see their betrothed. They form these things called star jewels. I went and read up on this Dragonlance lore. I was like in the archives, and her thing is that her vision showed her that her betrothed, who is that I don't know, is from another world outside of Kryn. So she knows that there are other worlds out there, and now that she's kind of made an enemy of Soth and everything else, she's like, I'm going to leave Kryn. So for her, my goal is to basically get her off Kryn at the end, and then allow her to start exploring other worlds and go into other places. So, because she's done. She feels like she's done everything.
Yeah.
Her goals, she won't achieve on Kryn. So she wants to go elsewhere to do them.
Hey, folks, the internet is fickle. And you know what? We're just going with it. But you know what, Mark, you gave an incredible answer for where you hope to see Miria, and I don't think we could do any better than that. So I actually, this is a good place to wrap things up.
Okay, great.
If people wanted to find you and what you do on the interwebs, where could they do so?
Yeah, so the easiest place to find me is, or the best place to find me is on High Rollers every Sunday at 5 p.m. UK time, which is 9 a.m. Pacific, I think. Sunday, you can come and watch High Rollers live. That's the easiest place that you can find me. You can also find me Sherlock Hulmes. Sometimes there's an underscore in there. Sherlock_Hulmes on Twitter. On Instagram, it's just Sherlock Hulmes. On Twitch, it's Sherlock Hulmes _ at the end. You got to just play around with it to try and find out where.
Put an underscore in here and there.
So yeah, exactly. And you'll figure it out. And you can find me all of those places, doing little bits on YouTube here and there as well. But High Rollers D&D, we're all of it. Everything's available as a podcast on YouTube, Twitch, High Rollers D&D, High Rollers, search for it. You'll find us. You can watch all of our cool stuff there.
Heck yeah, and be sure to do and see, Warforged Transformers and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and lots of, and if you like, basically, Erois, if you like things like anime and Final Fantasy and JRPGs, and sort of Magitech and stuff like that, that's exactly the kind of stuff to come and check out for Erois. And then hopefully this year we'll be starting our brand new campaign at some point this year as well. And you can come and start from fresh from the beginning. Lots of high fantasy and dragons and stuff like that to come. So
be sure to get those follows in now so you know when that's happening, folks.
That's exactly it.
And don't forget to watch Isle Chambers Presents Fury of the Black Rose, which is still going on right now. You will have seen the 4th episode. You're in the future. We're in the past. You're in the cool place. And that's at 10 a.m. Pacific here on twitch.tv/CNE Games. And then there's a rebroadcast later at 4 p.m. And the other thing I just want to put in here, don't forget to check out the cool little DLC skin that we got for Miria that makes her really cool.
True. Yeah. That's absolutely really cool. Because I guess that this would have come out by the time that's revealed, I think.
Yep.
So you're wondering like, so basically that is what Miria would have become if Soth had gotten his way and turned her into an undead thrall of his. So
I love
that's the
alternate
idea of the skin
stuff.
Exactly. It's the what if, what would have become of her, basically. So,
heck yeah. Cool. Get the super evil version of Miria right there.
Yep.
Well, Mark, thank you for taking the time to talk with me. Despite what the internet may try to do to stop us from talking.
I was going to say, thank you so much as well, Trevor. It's been really great. I'm so sorry for the tech issues.
No problem.
But just a busy world and things moving around all the time. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been really fun to chat. And I hope that people like Miria. She's a really fun character, and I hope that means you'll get to see more of her in the future as well.
Yeah.
She can go off on some crazy multiverse adventures.
Keep an eye out. You never know where she might pop up. There we go. Well, Mark, thank you so much. That is going to do it for this week's episode of Idle Insight. So until next week, take care of yourself.
Bye.